upon you. Let's see what happens today. We're going to be talking about how can you unite the Muslims, unite the clans. If you're a big fan of what's that movie called? I don't know. Uh, what's that great movie with Mel Gibson?
I'm not sure if I saw that. Do you mean it's not
Braveheart.
Bluebeard?
Braveheart.
Braveheart, yes, yes.
Yes.
I did
So,
see it. There was a lot of killing in it.
did that put you off? Okay.
It did.
Oh, okay. So, yep, let's quickly introduce everybody. My name is Khalid Safir. So I've actually been making an effort to put some graphics there. Oh, I undid it. There we go. That's me. So you can search my name out, and also my website bigquestionsanswered.com. So if you're seeing it on Twitter or something, you don't know how to find the rest of my content, that's where it is. Bigquestionsanswered.com. I'm a Muslim who tries to make Islam more accessible, more understandable, logical to everybody, practical for this life. I do happiness classes and things like that, and I try to reach out to all sorts of groups of people. And the motto that I've been brought up with is love for all and hatred for none. So I'm not against anybody. I want all the best for everybody. And then we've got our friend Claire Core. Am I saying it right? Core?
Cool, yes.
Core.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Um, I've,
go
I've
for it.
written a book, and it's available on Amazon, and it's called Secular Quranism. So I hope people will have a look and think about buying and reading it.
Okay, and but also, yeah, tell me something about secular Quranism for those who don't know.
Well, it's basically Sharia for non-Muslims and telling Islamophobes and Westerners who are alarmed by the idea that my standards will be comfortably low because I've lived for quite a few decades in their country. I understand their culture and their difficulties and their likes and dislikes. And what I propose is legalistic, and it is purely legalistic. I mean, I can talk about spirituality if people want, but basically, my solution is based in law and government.
So you're an agnostic person, and you're promoting Islamic teachings that, and you're saying the West should take them up legally as legal law, whatever.
Yes,
Um,
because Sharia is, I mean, Islam, of all the religions that I know of, see the logic that, that your laws should be based on your chosen moral system, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be Islam, but I'm saying, here's a good example. If you're a Nazi, you would have Nazi laws. If you were a communist, you would expect to live under laws that support communism. If you're a fascist, you would expect your laws to support fascism, whatever it is. Or ditto liberalism,
hmm.
socialism, and any other ism that you can think of.
Is Islam the best set of ideas, or is it just any random ideas? Could you have been supporting secular Judaism, for example, or is Islam a bit better than Judaism?
Well, I say in my book that um, even Jews would, even believing Jews, if they were being sensible, would say we would prefer to live under secular Quranism because at least it would help us be better Jews. It would help Christians be better Christians if they want to stay Christians. And it doesn't have 36 capital offenses, which is what the Torah has. So if you're going to take the whole thing seriously, you might as well take it seriously in a non-lethal way. Because
Yeah.
although the Quran mentions capital punishment, it doesn't. Uh, there are not that many of them.
Yeah, and they make it much harder to actually follow through with them. Like you need four witnesses for something like adultery, which is pretty hard to do. And anyway, it's not capital offences, a lot of them anyway. So
Mm,
a lot more lenient.
yes.
Okay, so that's a bit of background. And just in case, because when I heard secular Quranism, I didn't put it together. It was like, so secular, a secular attempt at following because you use K and I often use Q for Quran, so even then I didn't connect it. So basically a secular approach to Islamic ideas, so that anybody can, any government can apply the laws within the Quran.
Indeed, because I'm well aware that Western nations are not majority Muslim, but I mean, I think it'd be silly to wait for them to become majority Muslim because, goodness knows what horrible laws and crazy government policies that will have destroyed society by then. So I'm saying, don't worry, even if you're not Muslim, you can still apply those rules because all you have to do is understand what the Quran says and apply it as a non-Muslim, and it will work to return your society to social conservatism. And by that I mean the government supporting marriage and family values again.
Yep, and I think a lot of Muslims will support that idea. They're not going to wait. I mean, if an idea is good, doesn't matter where it comes from, apply it. And if you think the Islamic ideas make sense, why not apply it? So I think that should make a lot of sense to a lot of people. And Muslims, I don't think would mind the idea of secular Quranism if lots of people who are not even Muslim applying it to their lives. That's all great. So I want to build up to the main topic, which is, how can we unite the Muslims? And Claire, you're the one who really wanted to have this discussion. I think it's very important, but you said you really wanted to talk about it. So I kind of want to talk a little bit less, but I've got lots of questions for you. Maybe it would help, and you can ask me questions, whatever. But I feel like an obvious build-up is, why do we need unity at all? Like, what difference
To
will
get
it
things
make?
done. Why does any group need unity to get things done? What needs to be done? People will start getting alarmed, like, "Oh, we don't want Sharia," but but I've already said in my book that's a solution for the West because they don't even know if they're male or female, and their children are going to be told that it's okay for them to sterilize themselves because our parents don't expect grandchildren, and the kind of consigning themselves to extinction, but not quite admitting it. And Muslims in the West would surely feel themselves to be in some danger too, because they go to the same schools as where these toxic policies are being promoted.
And from my perspective, besides getting things done, that kind of makes sense. You need organization. And Prophet Muhammad said, to be organized, I forget exactly what it is, but to be organized is a blessing, and to be disorganized is, I don't know, there's a word, a curse. Yeah, right. And really, if you have any level, I mean, sometimes we are so used to all sorts of levels of organization that we don't realize how important it is. But the more disunity we have, like, when we went through Brexit, for example, so many people have gone, so many businesses gone under. They've just moved to Europe instead, and things like that. So many, the fishing industry just collapsed. That's a sign of disunity. And so the more we, if any of our supply systems didn't work quite well, or were not organized, would be big trouble. So that's important, to be organized. But also, I think bringing godliness back to humanity will bring happiness, is an idea. Like, just values, like, if we can somehow get people to realize that we all should be brothers and sisters, that we should take care of our neighbors like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam says we should, it would just be such a nice place, such a beautiful place. Unity instead of having endless wars like we're having at the moment. And some people might say, "Oh, Islam just wants wars, and Islam is a warring religion or something."
Christianity is worse.
Well, I mean, that's not the answer I would give, but Christianity is worse.
The First and Second World Wars were started by Christians, and if a Third World War breaks out, it will be started by Christians again.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who acquired 3 global empires, and we know how empires are all acquired by. war.
Yeah. And if you have some idea of Islamic history, you'll see a lot of it's just self-defense anyway. That's the teachings of Islam. Any war has to be out of self-defense. And some people might question that, like, oh, how do we take over Persia? Well, Persia was just threatening to destroy the whole Islamic empire, things like that. But anyway, yeah, I think having family values again, that would be really nice.
Well,
Yeah.
even if you're not being nice about the whole thing, but the point is that in order to have empire, you need men to men to become soldiers to acquire empire, and if you don't have them, then your empire declines, as the Romans found. So, any society that wishes to keep itself in existence would have to logically and necessarily support, family values and stable marriages.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. So we're talking about it from different angles, and I'm talking about it from like just the individualistic happiness sort of level, where the things that make us happy are very subtle things like being kind to each other, being together, having stable families, and you're saying things on which I also agree with is like if you want to have an empire. Then you've got to have some sort of structure, stability. You need men to go to war, which I'm not desperate for, but yes, it's true.
Or at the
Yeah,
very least, have a reasonable chance of fighting a successful defensive war. If you don't want to go to war, you still need some kind of military organization to protect yourselves. But
and if
if
yeah,
men don't even know they're supposed to be men, they're not going to defend anything, and they're not.
yeah. And actually, even before you go to war, if your country is imploding, self-destructing, which is what's happening in the West clearly. If it wasn't, I don't know. I mean, generally the population is dying out very quickly because people can't see the value of having children,
And the
or
government wants to discourage them from having children with all
yeah,
their LGBT policies.
yeah. I mean, besides LGBT, I mean, there's so many other issues. People just don't value families. They don't value women. They don't value men. They don't value the differences between them, the beauty in the differences between them, and it just goes. So anyway, that's the value of maybe having Islam and unity. We talked about that as well. So let's talk about secular Quranism. I mean, actually, what about you asked me a question, or where do you want to go with this next?
Hopefully we can stay on the subject of Muslim unity. I think we both agreed that we want that Muslim unity is desirable if Muslims wish to accomplish something, and I guess unity would only be possible under leadership, Muslim leadership that will, then we're back onto the question of a caliph, because the caliph would be symbolic of Muslims being able to agree on having a caliph in the first place. So I know this is something that Hizb ut-Tahrir are, aiming for, but I suppose the whole idea is that, yes, we'll have, a whole bunch of Muslim countries, but there will be the most powerful one, and that would be a demonstration of Muslim prestige, I suppose, because it would be the equivalent of Muslims having a pope.
Hmm. Okay. And so for people who don't know, Hizb ut-Tahrir, I think they're the only group or Muslim sect that make it. Is it a policy that they're aiming for a caliph? I mean, there's the Ahmadi Muslims, who are the only people who actually have a caliph for the last 100 or so years, but everybody else desperately wants them. So yeah, that's probably worth mentioning. If you want leadership, maybe look at the only existing example where it exists, the Ahmadi Muslims. But yeah, I suppose my next question would be, how on earth are you going to get? I mean, unity should be really easy, but it's not. Because, first of all, as I say, all the Muslim groups desperately want, I would say all pretty much, they should, and a lot of them desperately do want a caliph, because that's the way Muslims have unity. historically after Prophet Muhammad. But they can't, and except for the Ahmadi Muslims. So what do you think is the solution? How are we going to get this together?
It's all a matter of political aspiration, and I think, you know, perhaps they don't like you because they're jealous of you because you've already got your caliph, even though they say, you know, it's not a proper caliphate because it doesn't extend over any territory to speak of, but the
You mean it's
aspiration.
not? So they want it to be a political and not a spiritual caliph. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they want something along the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I imagine. And then, you know, perhaps they won't consider the reasons why the Ottoman Empire failed. Maybe perhaps they will never agree. But I think there is a simple way of, you know, just going through a list, like, you know, which rules did you break? I mean, I said to a Turk, like, well, your caliph, he had a harem, so you broke the 4 wives max rule, and because of that, your caliphate declined because you didn't obey those rules, and
so even if you're agnostic, you still believe that there's something, there's a price to pay if you break God-made laws.
Well, I'm saying generally people break their own rules. I break my own rules. I don't know why I do it. Maybe I think I can get away with it sometimes, and then I find I can't. And I think I assume that people, governments, empires break their own rules for the same reason. They think they can get away with it until they realize they can't get away with it, and then they pretend what is a problem is not a problem. They deny the problem and double down on the wrong policies that cause a problem in the first place, and then they decline and they blow themselves up or something, because if you think of Rome, it's got such a long history, and they changed their own rules because those who know anything about Roman history would know that the Roman Republic started as a society that hated kings, but eventually became a society who worshipped their deceased empires. So they did change. They changed, and they didn't really explain it to themselves properly. They said, well, we had to because we had an empire and the Republic wasn't working. But the interesting thing about the Roman Empire is that when Constantine the Great, the Roman emperor who Christianized Rome, converted Rome to Christianity, what was he trying to do? He was trying to unite the empire because he noticed that people no longer believed in the law, in the old religion, the old imperial cult. So he felt people, Christianity, which was the biggest idea going around, would be the thing because it was compassionate. It said, if you were good, you would be rewarded, and that this would please a lot of, slaves and women who, probably led terrible lives. And Christianity was called the religion of slaves and women. What the Roman Empire was missing was Islam itself, because we know that Rome fell before the Quran was revealed, and I think the answer is very easy to guess.
Before the Quran was revealed, I thought it fell around the same time, I don't know. Or maybe I've got my history wrong.
I think it was the 500s or 400s that Rome fell.
Okay. Yeah. Because the two empires collapsed and the Islamic Empire took them over effectively.
Yes, and I think Constantine, I'm sure, because he was a practical man and he wasn't just doing it, changing the religion of Rome for fun. And we know he called the Council of Nicaea. The bishops couldn't agree because some of them were Arians and the other were Trinitarians, and there was schism already in the First Council of Nicaea. And these are questions to do with the Trinity, which some people will find very complicated. But basically, the Trinity is worshipping Jesus as if he were the co-equal of the God of Israel, who is also Allah. And this is I believe, an unforgivable sin according to the Quran, because it's associating partners with God, and the Jews have a word for it too, which is shituf. So, both religions would not approve of Christianity, but because Christians have become so powerful, I guess they dare not, tell their Christian overlords what they think of their religion, and this fear of denouncing Christianity remains with.
So I'm trying to get a sense of where we're going here. So one is you started off with empires collapse when they break their own rules. So they make rules, and that's always a bad sign, I suppose. Even if you're within a family and you have some rules, and the dad's breaking all the rules and the mum's breaking all the rules, nobody's going to follow the rules. You're going to be in big trouble. So that kind of makes sense to me. And then you said this thing about Constantine, who didn't. You're kind of sounding like, and I probably agree with this, that he didn't really become Christian because he was getting spiritual. He thought it was a good way to keep his empire together, to have one set of rules that everybody agrees on, follows on, or believes in, or something like that. Is that right? Okay. What's so good about the Christian rules that got everybody stuck together? What was the quality of Christianity that kept the empire together? Can you explain that to me?
I think before Rome was Christianized, there wasn't any particular belief in the afterlife, and I suppose people who are frightened of death want there to be the prospect of a pleasant afterlife. Christianity is very popular with the Chinese, and I think the reason is because the prospect of afterlife under the rules of Chinese ancestor worship is very bleak, because your status can lower after you are dead, and which sounds a terrible thing. I mean, you think, oh, I'm dead, I've made it to the other side, but no, you. So the situation after death is this: there are only two states to be in. You are a worshipped ancestor, or you are a hungry ghost. And if you're a hungry ghost, you're treated as an evil spirit, really, causing mischief to people and having to be appeased. And obviously, you can. It's nicer to be a.
So in short, the threat and promise of an afterlife, the threat of hell and the promise of heaven, gets people to behave better, and that's a good function of having a functional society and a functional empire. Is that kind of right?
Yes, partly, but I think if you believe in a righteous God, a morally perfect God who will reward good and punish evil, then you would be more likely to defend a principle and do the right thing without being too afraid of suffering punishment in this life. You
Okay,
might
so
even
now
be prepared to martyr yourself.
I want to get to the serious stuff, which is how are we going to get this unity. So we've talked about why unity would be nice. We talked about why having a religion like Islam everywhere, which is the idea of secular Quranism, that would unite people. That's a method of doing it. But why isn't it happening? Why don't we have unity? I mean, I can see from my perspective of an Ahmadi Muslim, that we're really nice. We say love for all, hatred for none, all these kind of nice things. We're friends with everybody. We don't hate anybody. We don't hate any of the other Muslims, and yet they try to kill us. So you can see there's an obvious problem that despite us being really nice, they want to kill us. What else do they want to do? And it's not that they're particularly nice to everybody else either. Well, I mean, the Muslims amongst the Muslims. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Besides, between the sects, they're always fighting. Even at Speaker's Corner, they can't have a polite conversation. It's like incredible that they can't have a polite conversation, even though that's the teaching of Islam. The teaching of Islam is like anything that you add gentility to. So anything that has gentility is beautiful, and anything lacking that is ugly. I'm paraphrasing, but there's so many basic. Like I'm probably going to another thing, which is they don't even follow their own teachings, but. Yeah, we should be able to be nice to each other, yet we're not. What's going on, I suppose?
I think it's a question of hierarchy. I go on about the patriarchy simply because it has an organizational structure that is top down. So in any army, you can't function on a system of equality because, if you said let's attack that fortress, somebody else, if he's equal to you, will say you do it first. Why don't you do it? Why should I? And therefore orders have to come from the general and percolate downwards to right down to the soldier who will be
which is another word for unity. Hierarchy, and a clear hierarchy and one leader at the top is how you get unity. There's no other way, is there? Is that
with an unquestionable chain of command. Because the whole military structure is that the general gave the order, and was it passed down properly? And if something goes wrong, you will say, well, were you given those orders? Did you carry them out properly? Oh, I didn't, I forgot, whatever. And then you'll find who was the weakest link, and then you'll sort him out.
Yeah.
Because he didn't follow orders.
So you're saying we need one strong, unquestionable leader, aka the Caliph, or Khalifa is the Arabic way.
Or just a national leader, assuming he's in charge, but he's not under the current system. Because since the 1950s, I forget when, Harry Truman had this motto that he put in the Oval Office saying, "The buck stops here." He said that, but it didn't. It just circulated with, even faster until nobody knows who's actually holding.
So the obvious next question is, if you've got all these Muslims bickering amongst each other, then how on earth are you going to have a caliph?
Well, that is the thing, because the situation is that no beta male will accept the authority of another beta male. And that's understandable. It's like, who are you to tell me what to do? You're no better than me. You're even smaller and you're stupid. But why should I listen to you? And obviously, somebody who is, of undoubted stature, wealth, power, they will. But no such figure has emerged, or nobody even aspires to be in that role.
I mean, just to say, from the Islamic point of view, you said no beta male will listen to another beta male or follow the orders in Islam. Interestingly, because we value leadership and unity so much, Prophet Muhammad said, even if the person, your leader, has the brain the size of a raisin or something, like is basically stupid, you should still listen to them as much as you can anyway, because there's value in community and organization, unity. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, so people who are in positions of leadership should appear to deserve these positions, I think, because if you don't put the right people there, they won't have the authority that they need. Maybe they're able to do the job, but people start doubting them just by looking at them. Oh, you're stupid, you're poor, you're weak, you're a dwarf, or whatever it is. They just because people instinctively respect people.
So how are we going to find this alpha male that's going to, in your idea, on your conception of how things should work, how are we going to find this alpha male? Because I'm sure there's plenty of alpha males.
Debate. Thank you for asking me that question. I'm just assuming that, okay, let's just do YouTube land. In YouTube land, that all these Muslim da'is, and they, obviously
like Muhammad Hijab, right?
Daniel Hockey can't do. I mean, anyone who wants to enter the game, I suppose, but because Hockey can't do actually is quite political.
I don't know that one actually, but anyway, yeah, I'll check him out.
He's a Muslim skeptic.
You have Muslim skeptic. You mean the one who is against Islam? Oh no, there's the other one. There's two. They look kind of
prophet.
Oh yeah, I get them mixed up. Yeah, sorry. I kind of feel like they look the same. But anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think most will be offended.
Yeah, that's true.
and I think it could be easily organized. It's like it's just like some world heavyweight champion, boxing championship. You obviously, you have
so the funny thing is, Carol, your friend, we were discussing something about YouTube leaders, and she was telling me how disgusted she was, and I am disgusted with them. So just the fact that they are, you could consider them alpha males or something in ways, because they've managed to rise in leadership. They're very aggressive, especially Muhammad Hijab, but they're really stupid at the same time. I would say they're really stupid in many ways. They say things that I would say are un-Islamic, like Muhammad Hijab was saying, whack somebody if they don't understand, if they don't agree with you, which is, and if you're a parent, you just use some fancy words like wajib. It's like it's necessary that you listen to your parents, whatever it is. That's the opposite of Islam, because Islam says don't follow just because your forefather, don't follow an idea just because your forefathers said. So, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm not even sure going down the YouTube route, which is what you're suggesting, following Muhammad Hijab or Muslim Skeptic or these people just because they're popular. That could be a bad reason, because they're good at controlling. What's the word? The negative way of saying the masses. The
Controlling the discourse.
No, like the worst way you can describe the masses.
The sheeple.
The sheeple, maybe, yeah. As this, but anyway, but basically, what they do is they say things that are popular, and often for bad reasons. Like you probably know on YouTube videos, they're going to be more popular that people are rude to each other and stuff like that, and they take advantage of that. What I'm saying is that they don't really even seem to have very good intentions. Are these, and that's what our last talk about is, how do we find good Muslim leadership? Probably not the YouTubers, but now you're saying maybe the YouTubers. So we're going to have a lot of problems.
Well, I just don't see how, we're going to escape social media platforms, because it's the only way that people can communicate with each other across continents and oceans, and we need that platform. And if you're some distinguished Islamic scholar who who won't get your hands dirty talking to stupid people who are rude to you, then and you prefer to stay in your ivory tower and never talk to anybody who's rude to you, then your ideas won't get heard, and you're not taking any risks.
I don't think it's a question of not being on YouTube, because a lot of people don't get the attention just because they're not willing to play the masses for views. So they're not willing to say the wrong things, which clearly a lot of these YouTubers are doing. I gave just some examples of Muhammad Hijab about telling people to whack people, if they don't agree with you. So I don't think it's just a question of getting out there and talking to people. I think there's some value. They have done something right in getting out there and talking to the masses and putting some effort in, but they're doing a lot that's wrong by manipulating the worst things about society, the aggression and being popular by doing bad things.
Yes, they are of a certain age group, and young men of fighting age will do what young men of fighting age like to do.
All
So,
right.
it's a shame that it seems that there are no wiser heads prepared to tell Muhammad Hijab off. I guess he's a law unto himself. He doesn't take advice from the older generation, perhaps.
Okay.
Nobody presumes to tell him, or if they do, he ignores them. I don't know.
Or they just don't. There might be videos out there. I mean, I've certainly commented and things like that, but because obviously, his, I don't know how many 100,000 my versus my 1,000, he's going to be listing. But I'm sure there are people who are saying things. Okay, so you've got one idea of let people maybe compete on social media to become the caliph. So that's one way of doing it. What's wrong? Go on. You go on. What were you going to say? What's an alternative?
Some way of being top Muslim in your country, in your society. It doesn't necessarily have to be through social media, but I think in order to do anything, win an election, you have to use social media. So I see that as unavoidable in a way. I mean, it's like getting yourself on TV. Unfortunately, politics is a dirty business, and if you want to retain your dignity, I don't think you will.
Okay. So, So there's one qualification that these YouTubers have is talking and playing the Pied Piper, manipulating the masses and things like that. I suppose that's a skill of sorts. But a more useful skill is doing something useful for society, working with the community, organizing people. Next week, I'm going to do a video with Carol, the so-called caliph of the US, or whatever USA she calls herself. And we're going to talk about the organization of the Ahmadi Muslim community, which is mind blowing in the sense that we have so many organizations within the umbrella of the Ahmadi Muslims that the Caliph is managing all the time. Like we've got an engineering arm, for example, just like one tiny dot of the one corner of it, of the organization, where people from around the world. The other week I was in a conference I wasn't particularly invited to, but I was just chilling out there listening in, where they were talking about building whole new cities in all over Africa. I even so many houses and so many, far more than you can see, made by what you might hear on YouTube, made by YouTubers, because there's a few YouTubers making a few water holes and holes. We do hundreds of them all the time. The point is, I suppose the question would be something like, our Caliph does so many amazing, useful things that are actually useful to the community. Of a living community managing millions of people, so much so that there's community at high level and a low level. Like I'm in my local community as a local teacher for a few kids in my local few streets. And in short, these YouTubers have none of those qualifications. So I suppose my question would be, let's put it this way: what's wrong with the Caliph? And I think you've even seen the Caliph and heard of a speech from him. You went to an event, a peace conference of sorts.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was happy
So you've
years
seen
ago.
him. What would you say? What's wrong with his caliphate system? Let's put it that way, because it makes sense to ask the obvious elephant in the room question. If you've got a caliph, what's wrong with this caliph that nobody's listening to? Or not, that's completely wrong, actually, because it's a very quickly fast-growing religion, sect within Islam. But why not unite around this caliph? I mean, there's one obvious answer, because nobody wants to listen to him because they're jealous, which is a stupid answer. But besides that, I mean, what's wrong with this caliphate system that exists already? I suppose that's the question.
Well, I suppose its legitimacy has to be acknowledged by the other Muslims, and they're quite determined not to. But they might do that if there was some sort of contest that one person won, and that would be the beginning of a leader leading Muslims, well, somewhere good, hopefully. But these contests have to be fought, and I think most people are just prepared to protect their own patch, and they're happy enough. They don't want to do very much or get into trouble and get into fights with people, so they rather not do these things. And his only young men of high energy like Muhammad Hijab and his men, and the men who admire him of fighting age who want to do these things.
I think reality, the way I see it, they're going to have short-term wins, or almost inconsequential wins. And that's really, I want to clarify. Why is it inconsequential? Because they're going to say anything that will win views, but nothing that can be practically used in the long term. So I agree with Carol. Some of these people are young and inexperienced and say really stupid things about how to have relationships that just wouldn't work in real life. So, but it would get views. Right. So the way I see it is that as Ahmadi Muslims, we're playing the long game. What's the long game? We say sensible things, and we keep saying sensible things. Stop war. We talk about, the practical ways, the very boring, possibly, ways that we should be kind to each other. There should be justice and things like that. These YouTubers don't care about that, right? They don't talk about justice or anything like that. So we do the boring long-term work of accruing slowly the sensible people. And also on top of that, we do community work. And so a lot of people who come from African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, who, like, my granddad started the first free school there in Ghana, where the president studied, presidents and all sorts of very important people studied there when they had nothing. And now, when they come to Speaker's Corner and they hear people insulting African Muslims, they're saying these people are stupid. These other YouTubers are stupid, because they see the reality. They see what really matters, is what I'm saying. Not the stupid words that they use and the insults that they use to become popular. So yeah, you can play with the short-term games, which will have no consequence anyway, because as soon as Mohammed Hijab, if he ever becomes in charge of anything, you will see how empty his understanding of Islam is, and how useless it is, and how impractical it is.
He managed to get an
yeah.
interview with Jordan Peterson, though, to be fair. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I watched that. I'm not sure. Okay, let's put it this way. Yes, he's done a good job in working hard to become popular, so that other people who are popular will inevitably talk to him. That's just the way it is. You can call it meritocracy of sorts. Yeah, it is, what's the merit in being an idiot and being rude and things like that? There's some merit in that, and there's some merit in doing studies as well. He studied it as well. That's true. And so that's going to happen. And I do see, I suppose what I'm saying is we'll get there. And as Ahmadi Muslims, we're getting there, but we're getting there maybe in a slower way, because we're not playing the short game. We're not playing, we're not saying rude, and we're just being more logical. And I think,
would your Caleb be prepared to be interviewed by, I don't know, journalists?
Yeah, he's been. Oh, so that's interesting. So a lot of people don't know, but he's talked to lots of journalists all the time. It's very common, actually. He's talked to lots of top journalists in lots of countries all over the world. He's been to most parliamentary. So I think the UK Parliament, the United Nations Parliament, he's talked at. He's talked at the US Capitol Hill, in front of loads of MPs and whatever politicians. But you probably don't see it as much, maybe because it's not as interesting. But it's been done all the time. Yeah.
I mean, would he be prepared to be interviewed by, well, random people who might not be quite so respectful? I suppose that is really.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, would he be willing to have a shout off at Speaker's Corner?
Well, no. I suppose it would help me and my channel if he were prepared to speak to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking the other day you could go and meet him, because a lot of journalists have met him. So you could do that. That's definitely a possibility. So I'm planning on meeting him soon, because I'm off to the Middle East, and it's nice to say, what do you think? We like, all my children's names were selected by him. We all write letters to him and things like that. So yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities. So maybe I'll kind of show you a few links of all sorts of YouTubers and things who've talked to him. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are not known, but I suppose it's the same, like, somebody's heard of
if you were to promote secular Quranism, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's not out the question. That it depends how you put it. Like, okay, do you think secular Quranism? Okay, so he's obviously going to say, and he has said, that Islam will inevitably, run the world. Most people become Muslim. It's inevitable, and you can even put it in a logical way that, as the Quran says it, the truth smashes falsehood, and that's psychologically true. It's very hard to keep a lie in your head, for example, because you have to maintain that lie. But the truth is very easy to maintain truths. So we inevitably see Islam taking over. But what about secular Quranism? What is, if you put it this way, like you're getting non-Muslims to follow Islamic ideas, why not? Is a way I can imagine him saying. He might say something more intelligent than that. We'll see. Well, we could try to set up a meeting. That would be interesting. What do you think?
That would be wonderful. If you
Yeah, we'll
could.
put it on YouTube.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah. So I wouldn't put anything like. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't laugh at the idea of you putting the idea of secular Quranism as an idea that could make things better. I think I don't like, for example, I don't even agree with Andrew Tate a lot of the time. I don't think he should be smoking cigars,
Mhm.
But I think God uses different mechanisms for people in different ways to come close to Islam. Like there's so many convert stories where often women meet a really bad Muslim in a nightclub, right? But it starts off their journey. So God used that really bad, use that person, despite him being not very good, to get to Islam. What I mean to say is that there are all sorts of mechanisms to lead people to Islam that are not perfect. I don't think secular Quranism is perfect. I don't think you're saying is perfect either, but it's a way, and it might be instrumental. Who knows? Even though I don't agree with it, you said I think you said in the WhatsApp message, what did you say? Like I'm not an enemy, but I can't remember
Frenemy.
of secular. Sorry.
A frenemy?
Oh, did he say a frenemy? Oh, I didn't
I
read.
don't. I
I
don't.
can't. Maybe I didn't see the F, but yeah, you said you're not particular supportive of secular Quranism or something like on
Oh,
those
did I
lines.
say that? I don't remember
Oh
that.
no, I
I
didn't think
see
you were
so
saying
many
it in a
things.
bad way. But anyway, but the point is that yeah, sure, I don't have to agree with it, but I I think, as the Christians say, and Muslims would agree, God works in mysterious ways. I'm not here to, or the Quran says, God is the ultimate. We make plans, but God is the greater planner. So I don't suppose to try to guess how things will work out, how Islam will move forwards. Secular Quranism could be part of that. Yep.
I
And
think people being prepared to discuss it will just, bring it to the consciousness of more people who, may hate it, but might eventually see that there is no better idea around, or there may be even a better idea around, and secular Quranism is its step, is a stepping stone to
it's
this better idea. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, but I think a lot of people just kind of play dirty. It's sort of like, well, I don't like it, and therefore I'm not going to talk about it. And even from a logical standpoint, it is that, well, you don't have to like it for it to work. There are lots of unpleasant medical procedures that are not welcomed by the patient, but it will
Yeah.
work to save their life. So, but it is difficult to impress on people, because it is a fringe and radical idea and very unpopular. And maybe people are afraid to discuss it, or they think, if I don't give her the oxygen of publicity, perhaps it will just go away eventually. She'll get tired and do something else.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, suppose the question comes to my mind is, see, with Islam, nobody's going to give up until it becomes the dominating religion. You can see that it's really obvious.
Mhm,
Most of Speaker's Corner is Muslim, right?
mhm,
The atheists pretty much given up. They don't exist there. And there's one or two, but then they keep losing debates, and they're probably suicidal and depressed being atheists, and that's not a joke.
mhm,
So same with Buddhism. There's next to no Buddhists who like to come on camera anymore because they're usually quite depressed and unhappy. Although it helps some people in some ways get from a really bad place to a better place,
mhm.
from my experience. But yeah, the point is that there's Islam on the one side, which you can see the numbers are going up, and it's inevitably just going to keep going on. What is motivating you, I suppose, to keep going on, to
Bec-
keep this thing going?
Because I'm
Your
convinced.
secular Quranism, sorry, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes, I mean, I'm convinced that um, that my diagnosis is correct. That any society requires their government to support marriage and family values, and this means social conservatism. But if you haven't got a religion, you'll find it very difficult to support social conservatism, which is basically the idea that you shouldn't have sex with anyone other than your spouse, and you should stay together for the sake of the children, even if you get bored and tired of him or her.
So basically, social conservatism is another way for religious values.
Yes, because it's the only human tradition that is universal, that is kind of understood, all around the world. I mean, the Chinese weren't Muslim, but they knew that in order to remain in
Those are Chinese
existence.
did become Muslim, but yeah, there's thousands of Muslim. I think there's a misunderstanding about. I mean, are you part Chinese? You know, you're Malaysian. Do you have a
I am
Chinese
Chinese.
connection? Oh,
I
you
am
are Chinese, but you're not
Mm.
Malaysian then, or what?
I am Malaysian as a nationality, Chinese as an ethnicity.
Oh, really? Oh,
Mhm.
interesting. So, oh, I see. Oh, sorry. Of course it is. So you are Chinese and you moved to Malaysia. Okay, is that what
Well,
happened?
I was
Right.
born there. My
Your parents are Chinese. Okay.
Yes, and my parents were born there, but my grandparents, on
Okay.
my paternal side, they arrived, or my
But so
grandfather.
you must be aware that there are thousands of Chinese Muslims
Yes, I
in
mean, the
China.
Khoi people.
Uyghur, yeah. Or how do you
Yes,
say it properly? I say Uyghur. What's the proper way of
yes, I
saying
say
it?
Uyghur too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
don't know how to say it in Chinese
Oh,
anyway. I don't
okay.
know how to say it in
Okay.
Mandarin.
Oh,
Um, um, but yes, it is an empire. When I was in China, I got this book, with the Chinese government boasting of its 56 ethnicities throughout the empire. So um, I think, when I think of all the non-Muslim countries in the world, I think China is probably closest to being Muslim than America, shall we say, or India.
interesting. Why do you say that?
And because I think the mandate of heaven, if you've heard of that expression,
No.
which is basically the idea. It's like a divine right of emperors to rule.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Christianity supported the divine right of kings in Europe to rule, but the mandate of heaven is just this presumption that all emperors start off with the mandate of heaven, and it is presumed to be withdrawn when you see signs of it being withdrawn, such as pestilence and famine and natural
So
disasters
why
and
do you think
invasion and
China?
rebellions.
Sure. So why do you think that China might become Muslim first before the America, let's say?
Oh, I think because um, ruling classes are more logical. I think that they say, oh yes, what you say makes sense. The arguments you give make sense. Well, here people are saying yes, it makes sense, but nobody's going to support it.
Hmm.
Because it's like, oh, people will just hate it and you can't reason with them. You
Hmm.
just can't reason with them because
Hmm.
the hatred is so great that you'll just never be able to get past it.
So I want
Um,
to wrap around back to the main subject. So can Muslims unite? I suppose we've just talked about.
if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And obviously a charismatic figure, prepared to take risks, prepared to, do all the publicity that is necessary to, take positions, make points, and be an inspiration. They will have to, step up.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, and I suppose I'm just trying to cover the basic ideas, cover all bases, as it were. So the obvious thing is you talked about legitimacy. That's got to be it, right? How do you pick a legitimate caliphate? And the most legitimate from the Muslim point of view would be the one chosen by God.
Yes,
And
I mean, if
there
you're
are, I would say, I could put in front of you loads and loads of prophecies that the current caliph has essentially fulfilled. We talked about sort of like there was a prophecy of the past caliphate system, it would die out and it would start again with a new prophet. Nobody else has got a caliphate system that follows a prophet, and it fit exactly with the pattern of the caliphate system as predicted by Prophet Muhammad, and it died. The old caliphate system died just before the new caliphate system under the Ahmadiyya Muslims started. And you can see legitimacy in a million other ways just through some basic logic, like, oh, how comes every other Muslim group desperately wants Muslims, caliphate system, and none can achieve one except for ISIS for about 2 years, when I think the guy killed himself, right? So they'd take that as a sign. And then you've got the only caliphate system that's existed for, I don't know, 120 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's loads of other prophecies you could put. So you've got the greatest level of legitimacy you can possibly have. So in terms of legitimacy, you can have YouTube legitimacy, the masses, the telling you, the likes and the subscribes or whatever, right? Or you can have God legitimacy. And even within the YouTube legitimacy, people like Carol and myself are saying these people are nuts, these YouTubers. Yeah, doesn't add up, doesn't add up to anything sustainable. So it's going to die anyway. So it's a really rubbish way of picking a caliph. So what other legitimacy is there besides God and YouTube likes?
Well, it would be legal legitimacy. So, assuming a Western nation converts to Islam, I mean, just supposing it's America, then, and if America remains the most powerful Islamic nation on earth, it becomes or is, then it would be the caliphate, wouldn't it? Because the caliphate, a caliphate is the most powerful Muslim nation, is it not?
Yeah, I think you would have a problem. I think there's another really basic thing we haven't talked about is, say you have somebody in America. You see, first of all, an actual caliphate system, according to Muslims, is that you only have one caliphate. You don't have one caliphate per country. So you're going to have a big problem if somebody decides to call themselves a caliphate or khalifa in America, because Iran is not going to be happy about it. Basically, everybody is not going to be happy about it. That's not going to work.
And then the legitimacy of this caliphate, caliph, will be disputed, and then. But that would be useful, because people would say, oh, there can only be one caliph, and then the Americans says, well, I'll fight you for it, Iran, if you don't like it.
I'm not sure if that's going to work out very well. You want nuclear war, and then eventually, when all the wars, when we're pretty much all dead and there's only 5 of us left, then we'll pick a caliph in peace, would we?
Yeah. So that's not really the idea, but I think just discussing it would just take it further. You see.
Okay. I do value that, yeah.
And obviously you could have a system whereby you have all these Islamic states, and let's assume all the countries in the world become Islamic states. They can vote for the caliph, couldn't they? They can say it would be like the papal conclave rules. You have to vote for somebody else who will be a better pope than you, because it'd just be silly. Nobody would get out of the Sistine Chapel if everybody just voted for themselves. So they would have to vote for the person other than themselves who would be, the best pope. And you could have the system so it will be settled, without war.
Yeah.
I have lots of ideas like that, to help Muslims reach unity.
Go for it, because I was running out of them. Go on.
Oh, right. So yes. So the idea is that Muslim unity would be great. How do we achieve it? This could be, a subject that can go on and on and on. You could talk about it at speaker's corner and annoy the others, and they're like, well, how are you going to do it?
Run through the ideas.
The ideas would be a leadership contest, and the other ideas would be,
that would be a fun idea.
How are you going to run it? I mean, obviously there is only one way of doing it, which is some kind of contest, because nobody's just going to say, "Ooh, you're the caliph, you're so wonderful," because somebody will say, I don't think so. I'm going to fight you for it in some way, through a debate.
Okay,
right?
Here's a problem with that idea. Let's go through the ideas. The problem with that idea is that very likely despite Ahmadi Muslims being a small group within Islam and the majority being everybody else, we're the most organized. So we can just get we can do we punch way beyond our weight. What's it called? Our weight category. Like we organize loads of community. You've been to one event. No other Muslim group was doing anything similar during coronation event. I mean, the whatever party it was.
You are loyal Muslim subjects.
Yeah. So the point is, nobody can compete with us in terms of anything organized. So if we had a YouTube talk off event of some sort, speech event, and the Khalifa talked and everybody else talked, we could just get all the Ahmadis around the world to like that one video, we would win. But the problem with that is nobody would accept him.
Well, no, it wouldn't just be amongst Muslims. You would have to appeal to the non-Muslims who are looking on, because actually,
okay. So let's say we won
real
that.
audience is not the other Muslims who hate you. It's about the non-Muslims who are kind of, oh well, nothing else is working. You know, what kind of Muslim can we put up with? What kind of Islam? And that's where you guys come in.
Sure. I mean, I think so. Let's say we won that, and it's not unlikely because we do so much more than any of these YouTubers can manage at all. Like, for example, these YouTubers are always making adverts to pay for one mosque in Sweden while we're building hundreds of them in the same amount of time. So we can do far more than they can even imagine. So let's say we win that YouTube event. Who's going to follow us? Despite even though you have all these, let's say, Westerners say, yeah, we all like that video, whatever, then what? And then people won't, everybody else won't just follow, because it's very, what I'm saying to, it's very easy for people to first of all just give likes. That's just like social media levels being social, but it means
I'm talking about beyond that. Obviously, you need to get the media interested in the idea and be prepared themselves to host all these debates, this kind of Muslim with that kind of Muslim, Sunni and Shia, whatever. They can make it probably interesting and controversial if they wanted to. And so it would be a matter of persuading the BBC and Western media to take an interest in the goings on.
Yeah, and I'm not. I might sound like I'm against it. But I'm not really, because I think it's all going to be positive attention for good. I mean, talking and debating, I'm all for it. I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to solve everything, but I do think it will get the true caliphate that I believe in further up the rankings, and more people are aware of it, and inevitably everybody will follow this caliphate system, the only system that exists that's lasted for over 100 years. The best track record.
You can run debating societies. I think that could be fun, since you also organise a debating society.
I mean, you'd be surprised, so many things. I'll send you a few things like debates at universities and things like that. So that will already exist, but I think they go under the radar because they're not pop culture sort of level, but yeah, they do happen. So I'll try to send you a few things about based on what we were talking about. So journalists, politicians talking to the caliph, university debates with Ahmadi Muslims, organized by Ahmadi Muslims.
Maybe a magazine. Because I think of Jehovah's Witnesses, they have
we have magazines as well, but we have a lot of things we've got. But I mean, definitely, I'm not going to try to make out as if we're doing a good enough job. We've never done not a good enough job. There's always something to improve on. A million times better. We need to do better. So, but I'm just saying that it exists and it happens, and. But yeah, definitely we've got our own TV channel, the first Muslim TV channel ever to put on satellite. All the other Muslim channels came after that. We could keep going on and on. We've got the biggest mosque, the first mosque in London. You can get, and you've been to both, I think, the first mosque in London as well as the biggest mosque in London run by the Ahmadi Muslims. So yeah, keep going on. Anyway. So run off some more ideas. This is what we're trying to find. We're trying to unite the Muslims. That'd be really good if we could do that.
Yes, and get at the same time get non-Muslims interested in the idea. And I think, this is kind of more about entertaining them. Unfortunately, it does sound a bit, I don't
That's
know,
all right. I think you can have educational entertainment. That's what I
yes,
do.
edutainment.
Yeah, I think hopefully to some extent, my videos, although I'm not particularly funny or anything, people do watch it as somehow entertaining, maybe just because it's educational and you don't know what's going to happen at the end of it. It's it's just, especially at Speaker's Corner. So
Yes.
in some ways it's entertaining. Yeah. So yeah. Any
Yeah,
other ideas?
yeah.
I mean, so go on.
I think really, in a limited way, I suppose, talking about certain things and having a certain brand so people instantly recognize you even, before you say too many words. Um, I think the caliph, he doesn't have to talk about it favorably. You may have all kinds of
Talk about what secular Quranism.
secular Quranism. I mean, it could be that, it's just a stepping stone
He
in
could.
the
Why not? Let's
direction.
see. You just, we'll try to do a meetup. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, that would be.
um, yeah. And I mean, I'm just going through the thoughts. I'm trying to cover the most obvious things. And one of the most obvious things is, like I put in the thumbnail of this video, is that there's a huge degree of unity in some sense amongst all the Muslims. They all meet up in Mecca, thousands of millions of them, praying together, all wearing the same clothes and things like that. And it's interesting that there is a huge level of unity, but there's something missing, not the level of unity for action or something. And that's one idea. And before I forget the second idea, despite Muslims being all brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff to each other, there's a lot of corruption within Muslim countries. And because of that corruption, those countries are not strong. And that shows when they lose endless wars against the West. So I don't think it's an accident. I think at least the West they have more integrity in some ways, in that the way they run their businesses. And then you can see lots of Muslims going to Western countries for a reason, right? So there's two things I mentioned there. One is there seems to be a huge level of unity in the fundamental sort of fabric of Islam, which is, going to the pilgrimage and meeting together and meeting in mosques and things like that. But that doesn't seem to be enough. And the other thing is there is a lot of disunity that we don't seem to realize, or corruption in Muslim countries, which make them weak. And yeah, so there's two rough ideas. Any thoughts about, what do you think about the idea that there is a lot of unity amongst Muslims?
I think potentially there could be a lot of unity. It's just that people are cynical, they are afraid, or they tried something, in the past and it didn't work and it blew up in their faces, and they think it's just better not to get involved. That is something a lot of people say about any kind of politics, and not a lot of people enjoy it because I think people have to be almost compulsive in their desire to discuss politics, to keep doing the same thing again and again, and finally, after decades.
But not everybody's a lead. Not everybody's a leader, so you're not expecting everybody to do that. But if you have a strong community like you have with the Ahmadiyya Muslims, ordinary people can make a massive difference.
Yes, and it's also a question of making logical arguments and getting them accepted. And I find that a lot of people are just, yes, it's a logical argument, but it's not going to be accepted, therefore I won't support it. It's that kind of idea. And it's like, yes, I might support it if I knew it was going to happen.
Okay,
if you're going to win, but if you're not, well, I'm not interested. It's that sort of attitude.
Let me go back to the second idea. So I think there's a lot of corruption. A lot of people who come from Syria and these other Muslim countries will say, yeah, there probably is a lot. Actually, I don't know about Malaysia. That's quite a Muslim country. Is that Muslim mainly, or 50-50 Christian Muslim, Malaysia?
I think it's 60% or something.
Muslim.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. How corrupt are they?
There've been complaints of corruption, but maybe not as bad as other Muslim countries. I don't know, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you just
I
read
mean
what you
that.
read in the
I mean,
media.
I think that that I'm just thinking of all the things that are related to this topic. So if you have corruption, that's a sign of disunity within a country. Would you agree?
Yes, but I suppose what I'm also trying to say is that you've got to pay people enough to make it, to make them not want to accept bribes. If you pay them a pittance, then they'll think, well, of course I've got a family. You
Yeah.
can't expect me to live on this. You must
Mm.
be expecting me to take bribes.
So maybe better leadership then.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, the only way to make things work properly is basically you reward good immediately and you punish evil immediately. And if that doesn't happen, people will think that they've gotten away with it and will continue to get away with it. And that is why we need the rule of law. So it's a shame that you have all these rules up there are in theory. That would work if only they were properly enforced, but they never are
Yeah, I
because
suppose
there's no
that's one of my.
political will to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the thoughts I had, which is um, basically Muslims. Is it worth saying? Yeah, Muslims don't even follow many of their own laws. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
that is so true because I keep banging on about the fact that um, um, they think it didn't matter because I go on about chapter 18, verse 4, which is Muslims admonishing those who claim that God has begotten a son. And I can imagine a lot of caliphs and Muslim leaders, oh, it doesn't matter, we don't want to be rude to Christians and whatever. And I think they paid the price when all those Christians in their crusades came over to the Middle East and did what they did.
hmm. I
Um,
mean, the reason why I was thinking about this whole thing about Muslims following laws is because if they followed the basic laws of Islam, there will be unity immediately. The basic laws, I'll give you some really basic laws. In the Quran, it says you're not allowed to call anybody a disbeliever if they say peace. End of discussion, finished. So that'll be the end of all the infighting. Okay, and then you'll have to love everybody because you're following Prophet Muhammad, who loved everybody because he was told that he has not come except to be a mercy for all people, right? So just a few of these basic laws, no compulsion in religion, all these kind of basic things, you would struggle not to have unity because you wouldn't be able to fight with the Muslims would not be able to fight with each other. The problem is Muslims don't want to follow basic Islam. Even the top YouTubers do not want to follow. I could quote just that one verse of the Holy Quran that says you're not allowed to call anybody a disbeliever. All the top YouTubers will hate that, right? So where are we going to go? If
Well,
we
the
follow,
thing is, they do it to establish status over each other, right? It's like, oh, you said the wrong thing. You must be a heretic, and therefore,
that's exactly why you're not going to have unity because
yeah,
of that.
yeah, and maybe
But they will because
maybe there should
yeah.
be some etiquette book written by the caliph saying
Yeah, I mean,
Muslims are
there's
not to do.
etiquettes given by Prophet Muhammad about
Yeah,
being polite, uh, and just his example. But they don't. People would rather not follow it because they don't suit their needs. They're not going to get enough views and stuff like that. And they're going to lose arguments, and that's not going to work out for them. Anyway, have we worn out the discussion? I mean, I don't want to end it, but I do like the 1 hour sort of thing. And we've done 1 hour 13, but go on, like one more. Right, you go and push it. Give me your next best idea, and let me shoot it down, possibly or not. Let's see what happens. Go for it.
um,
For unity, Muslim unity, or world unity, really is what we're looking for, which through Muslim unity.
well,
Go on.
I think Muslims should talk to Jews
Interesting
and
idea.
use the argument I have used about why Jews, you don't want a Torah theocracy. Surely you don't. You've got 36 capital offenses. Come on, you don't want to do that. And they do. Nobody's asking for a Torah theocracy, and they're actually arguing about how they should run it. I mean, you can't have a theocracy without rules by God, and these Jews are in a lot of trouble because it's so harsh, right?
You were talking about Israel. Are you talking about Israel?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and Israel.
Because if you
Yeah,
give them a hard time and say, look, you're the one who started the whole thing off, with your God of Israel, and now you live in Israel, and you're living as a liberal Democrat. Are you sure God would be, happy about this?
gay pride.
Yeah.
I think, did they have the biggest? What was it they were famous for? Oh, they had the Eurovision competition, and it was very gay centric or something.
Yes. Well, it gets
Yeah,
gayer every year.
yeah, yeah. And they had a massive. They do have a massive Pride Month there or something. Is that
Yeah,
right?
apparently,
Yeah,
the Tel Aviv gays are out of control. The heterosexual Tel
yeah.
Avivians, don't like to confront them because the
So
swear.
what we going? So when we talk to the Jews, what's the conversation going to be about?
Well,
Like,
okay, you can pretend to be the Jew. So I come
okay,
up to you and say,
yep,
you believe the Torah is true, don't you?
yep, I
And you
do.
have to
Yeah,
say yes, and I'll
yes,
say, you know there are 36 capital offenses in the Torah, don't you?
yes, I do.
And
Yeah,
and don't you think Israel should be a theocracy?
yeah. I suppose if I'm an Orthodox Jew, so yeah, absolutely.
Right, but what about the secular Jews in Israel who just run a mile or get really angry at the very idea?
Oh, bit of a
You'll
problem.
have to calm them down in some way because,
All the
and I'm saying
atheist
secular
Jews. Yeah,
Quranism is the equalizer. It'll make
yeah.
the Orthodox Jews less, strict, and it'll make the more degenerate secular Jews less degenerate, and it's a kind of
Okay.
way of, and obviously I'm also promoting secular Quranism with Israeli
Oh,
characteristics,
I
and they
see.
don't
Yeah,
like it either. Uh, um,
yeah.
but my shtick is basically saying that they shouldn't even build the third temple. Al-Aqsa Mosque was put there for a reason, telling them that they shouldn't build the third temple because they think, we build the temple and then the Messiah will arrive and everything will be fine. And I'm saying no, Al-Aqsa is there for a purpose, and then they're not to tear it down because they'll just be fighting amongst themselves, like, who's going to be the priest, who's going to make the sacrifices, and they'll be fighting, and that's probably why they protect it, because they know it's a poison chalice if
Hmm.
they ever build the third temple, and
Okay.
already half of them don't want it, and
Yeah.
and Jews present a conundrum in the whole narrative of the Abrahamic God, because it's all linked, isn't it? The Jews are Christians and Muslims, and kind of the Torah and the Quran are bookends with the idolatry of Christianity in the middle. But hopefully it will be contained and not be spilling over to the rest of the world. Oops, with Globo Homo.
Very interesting descriptions. The Quran and the Torah bookends. Anyway, but anyway, okay, I want to kind of end. I'm going to say how I think the Muslims will be united, and then maybe you can give your vision of hopefully how they will be united if you haven't said it already. But just nice to wrap up, I suppose. If you're okay with wrapping up, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna. In some ways, what I'm going to say is obvious. I'm going to say yes, of course, the caliphate that I'm following is inevitably going to win. And why is it going to win? Because it follows all the prophecies and all that kind of stuff. Let me just make this thing silent. Sorry. Oh, good. Okay. Silent. The one time I hardly ever keep my phone off silent, and then anyway. So, but why else other than my personal belief? If we look at all the ways the truth has won out, let's say. It's usually over impossible odds. Look at Islam. People say they were like effectively like the Eskimos who if in our modern times, if we compared to what the Muslims did, they were like effectively like Eskimos taking over America, and so the Russians. And so how do you unite a people? It's truth, God, and God has always picked somebody in impossible situations. Jesus, for example, very unpopular in his times, only 12 or some people say 70 followers. And look at the Christians now, and look at the Jews, next to no Jews, and so many Christians. And he didn't really unite the Jews. He just did what was right and won out. Prophet Muhammad didn't particularly try to stitch all the false ideas of the idolaters of his time and say, you know what, you're a little bit wrong there. If you can keep your belief and change, agree with this guy, he didn't bother with that. He just said, here's the truth. Stick to the truth, and this truth inevitably wears out the falsehood. This is an understanding of the Quranic verse, of the verse that goes along the lines of truth comes and falsehood vanishes, but the actual Arabic word implies that it wears out. There's many descriptions of basically the truth destroys falsehood because of its very nature. It's very hard to keep a lie in your head and maintain that lie. It's very hard to keep a lie in the face of truth, essentially demolishing it. Even if you pretend to believe in the lie, it's not going to stick together. Like, look at Christianity dying out really fast because you can't believe 3 gods are one. 3 does not equal 1. End of story. Finished. Nobody's going to believe it in about 2 generations' time. So, short answer: God behind it. The truth will win. Yeah. What do you think? How secular? And I suppose maybe add on this other idea that I like from. I asked you about, but I didn't mention it directly. What's his name? He's somebody who talks about infinite games. No mind. Basically, people who are willing to just keep going forever and never will stop. That's why I asked you about what keeps you motivated. The Muslims are not going to stop. Ahmadi Muslims are not going to stop. And we're more resilient than most other Muslims because we're very calm and just keep going. We don't care about the views and all this kind of rubbish on YouTube. We're just going to keep winning hearts over time. We're going to win. What's your winning plan for secular Quranism?
To be unignorable. It's very easy to understand. I can say it in one tweet, which is that it's Sharia for non-Muslims who intended to unite social conservatives of all races and religion in the West who are tired of global homo and feminism and the instability that this has brought to their society. So I think, in theory, if I were platformed by the BBC or,
The Caliph.
Then it would begin, but obviously it takes somebody there to make that decision, which I think currently they're all, they've set themselves against, giving me a platform because they don't like my ideas, because it's antithetical with, everything the West has stood for. I mean, I'm talking about 2,000 years of Christianity and 250 years of liberalism, and they're going to be thinking, well, who is she to tell us it's all wrong, kind of thing.
I think there's a way you can win. It's like this: you become an Ahmadi Muslim. One, it'll give you all the tenacity and patience that you will need, and you can still promote secular Quranism. All it is like this. I kind of promote secular Quranism because I say I want non-Muslims to practice Islam as well as Muslims and understand it as well. Great, let's do that.
It's just the anti-room to Islam, really. It's like, dip your toes, just see how you like it, and
try before you buy. Yeah,
that kind of thing. So it's not. I have to insist on my agnostic identity because I don't want to feel that I'm abandoning them, and and I'm saying yes. I'll keep.
Don't you want God's backing? Come on, if you really want.
Yes. I think of course I would.
Yeah.
Of course I would.
Yeah. Anyway, think about the Ahmadiyya option, right? And also, you're really funny. I think you've got a lot of funny phrases. Global homo. I don't know what.
No, it's not my thing.
But you remember all of them. They're really funny. And your book is. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it, but it's really funny listening to Claire go through the book. Like,
Carol read it fantastic.
Carol. I get your name's mixed up. And she was like, she was going through the chapters and said, I don't know if there was a chapter or sub chapters, and said, are you going to blame the Jews? Are you going to blame the Muslims? Are you going to blame the feminists? It's just, and you could hear this is exactly your style of talking. So maybe your humor will be on your side as well.
It's a very short book.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anyway, I always appreciate your time. I think we're making a difference. Maybe one heart, one mind at a time.
We are.
Don't give up. Don't. You win. You're on the winning side. Islam. You got the right idea.
Yes. And I have to report to you that I spoke to my aunt earlier this week, and
Yeah.
I know she's sort of pretty anti-Islam, but she's saying, well, I read the book. It sounds quite reasonable. So I was taken aback, but you know, she actually did read it. So I think there's hope for all of us, really.
There's all hope. There's always hope. I mean, for me as an Ahmadi Muslim, I see myself as already won. Just a matter of time. And you probably have the same perspective if you join us. Anyway, peace be upon you. Peace be. Thank you very
same
much.
to you. Thank you for having. Oh, you've got all the comments in the chat asking you, but anyway.
No, I don't have any comments today.
Well, there's plenty. I'm reading them.
Oh, really?
Not all of them are polite, but
no, but I can't see any. Am I pressing the wrong button? I'm putting chat. Can you read one, maybe the most useful one?
I will read them.
Can you click a button? Can you see them?
Yes. So
you can click them and put them on the screen?
Oh, I don't think I can. That's up to you.
I don't know why I can see. Again, read one out to me then. Sorry about that, guys. If you're joining in, didn't mean to ignore you. Normally I try going. Give me a good one.
So what would be the process for picking a caliph? I answered that question. Great.
And I answered it as well. God. But anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Go on.
Grady Head 94 asks, Pan-Arabic Muslim unity is not going well. Morale is low. He continues, are you going to talk to Dr. E. Michael Jones again?
Yes.
That was a good video.
Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday coming. We're going to talk about, we're going to have a Muslim versus Christian, how do you call it, face-off in terms of practical ideas. I can't remember. How are we going to save marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to come up with his Christian ideas. I'm going to come up with my Muslim ideas to see who wins. So it was a great discussion. Really interesting person. Yep. Any other one more? Well, let's go for one more.
Yes, he said that was a good video, and I'm interested in him talking to more Muslims because I'm studying Islam myself as a Catholic, says Grayly Hen.
Interesting.
And then he says the Lord did begot a son to man, but philosophy in Islam is weak because it's a solo fidelis religion. It's difficult to discuss this with Muslims because of that. He continues, try to talk to Israelis and see how interested they are in talking to Muslims. Yes,
I mean, I'm happy to have whatever his name was. I'll look through it. I don't know. So sometimes
who's a Catholic studying Islam.
Yeah, tell him to comment. I mean, feel free. I mean, I'm telling you to comment. He can listen to comment on the. So I don't always see the live chat for some reason. The way things work, I'm probably pressing the wrong buttons.
Well, I can see it for some reason. So
yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, but do comment. I always follow the non-live comments because I always see them and I go through all the comments and respond to them. Somebody on Saturday said they wanted to debate me, and in the comments, and they emailed me and things like that. I mean, not on Saturday, sorry. They're going to debate me on Saturday, but that whole thing happened through, they asked me a question through the comments, and I gave them my email, blah, blah, blah. All of it's going to happen. So anybody who, whatever his name is, just said that it's hard to talk to a Muslim or something about whatever, I'm always happy to talk to anybody and everybody. So if you're interested, just put a comment in the in the comment, and I'll respond, and I'll give you my email. My email is actually Khalid Safir, my name at gmail.com anyway. So whatever. So I'm always up for debating anybody and everybody.
Right. I saw on the video, I don't know, briefly, it says new comments appear here. So you must have clicked on something. So I don't know if you want to try clicking on things so we can see what's going on, so you'll know.
I'm pressing everything.
Yeah, I just saw you say,
okay,
subscribe to Khalid Safir. But New comments will display here.
Hmm.
So you've got a third column now.
Yeah, so I've pressed chat overlay, but I can't see anything. Oh, somebody chat, maybe. And
New comments will display here.
oh, is that what
now
it
a
says?
third
It's so tiny because of my screen, because I've got lots of things happening on my screen. Oh, okay.
column.
Oh, yeah. So if there's a new comment, then I'll see it. But yeah. Anyway, learning process. Oh,
Yes.
and I didn't get you to press the restream button. Oh, there we go. We've got a comment. And
Oh, yes, it's
I
happening
totally
now.
forgot about that. So no. So is there a button on your side that allows you? Yeah, it's happening now. I can see things, and let's make the screen picture bigger so I can read it. OBS is trouble showing live comments. Are you using OBS? No, I'm using something called Restream.io. It's like StreamYard. So interesting. Maybe I'll pay StreamYard and they're better or something. I'd love to talk sometime. You're welcome. So Grayley Hen 94. You know what? I'll just post my. Let me see if I can type. It doesn't let me type. That's really weird. So I'm going to post my email on the bottom of this video in the non-live comment, because I can't even comment. There's something weird going on. I don't understand it. So my email is Khalid Safir, is basically my name. Let's just put that on right now. Captions. So I mean, if you stuck those no spaces in Khalid Safir, yeah. Okay, so I mean, I could put it clear. Just put up the private chat, and then maybe so at gmail.com. There you go. I don't know. Can you post things in the chat, Claire, or something?
But okay, the private chat, it just means only
Yeah,
we
I
can
know.
see
I
it.
don't know if you can send it to.
Oh, you want me to post it?
Yeah.
I can't
Oh, okay. It's
post
really.
it.
But anyway,
But
like my email is really simple. It's my name, Khalid Safir, obviously no space, at gmail.com. Just email me, and I'm already set up a discussion with a Muslim who's promised to have the first ever polite conversation with me about the Quran and whether you can have a prophet after Prophet Muhammad. So that'll be interesting. Saturday, listen to it.
yes.
7 p.m. London time. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
It's always a
Greatly.
pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure, sister. Okay, peace be upon you. Bye.